Hey guys, I just finished fixing my fog machine, and while it's fresh in my mind, I wanted to make a quick video kind of walking through the step-by-step troubleshooting that I followed, just because I know this time of year especially lots of people are finding out their fog machines aren't working properly, and there's really a few things that are pretty common that go wrong, so I'm going to walk you through those really quick and hopefully it'll help you out and save you having to buy a new one. So this is my fog machine. It's a Chauvet Hurricane F 1700. It's kind of one of their bigger ones, and back in 06, 07, it was, I'd say, a fairly high end of the mid-range fogger. A lot nicer than what you'd get at one of the Halloween stores, but not necessarily something you'd use to like fog a stadium. This particular machine has a couple bells and whistles that you might not find on a standard fog machine from like a Party City or a Halloween Express. It has a low fluid level sensor, so that when the fluid level gets down to a certain point, it shuts off to prevent damage to the pump. And it also has a remote that I took out as I was working on it, a timed remote. So you can either control the machine from the remote, set up a timer, and set the interval of duration, or there's a manual fog button on the top of the machine as well. That complicates things a little bit and made troubleshooting this one a little bit more difficult, but I'm going to walk you through and just kind of show you how it works. I apologize in advance for the low production value here, but we're pretty close to Halloween. I just got this thing working and I don't want to spend a lot of time making fancy videos, so sorry. Like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to post in the comments if you have any questions. I'll do my best to help you out. Step one of troubleshooting is going to be to fire up the machine, turn it on, and see what happens. If the heater's working properly, you may start seeing a little bit of fog spitting out from time to time, right? So that's a good sign. That means that your heater's working. Now, you're probably, there's some people online that say you can run vinegar and distilled water through the machine to help clean out the pump. I've never found that to be effective. I find it's much more effective and really not that difficult just to open up the machine, take apart the pump, and clean it, and then you get much better results. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the machine open and kind of walk through the different steps to troubleshoot. First thing you're going to want to do is make sure that the unit is turned off and unplugged. When you're dealing with electricity, you can never be too careful. So if you're not comfortable working around electricity, I wouldn't recommend doing this, because for some of the troubleshooting you actually have to turn the machine on while it's open. Another very, very useful tool that I would recommend is a multimeter or voltmeter. It can help to diagnose voltage issues, and also just for checking continuity to see how things are connected and what's hooked to what. So real quick, give your machine a visual inspection. Just look at the wires, see if anything's unplugged or unhooked or leaking. And in general, fog machines are pretty simple. I know there's some newer machines that are they use microcontrollers and there's a lot more complexity to them, but this is a little bit of an older model, and I would imagine most fog machines are very similar in that they have a heating element, which you can see here. There's two leads going into it. There's also a pipe going into it that the fluid runs through. There's a pump. On this particular model, the pump is over here. You can see the blue supply line running to the pump, and then there's a copper pipe coming up out of the top of the pump that runs to the heating element. And then somewhere along the line there's a switch. In this case there's a switch here, but as I showed before, there's also a switch, a remote switch. So there's a plug at the back of the machine where the remote switch would plug in if it was hooked up. And there's some kind of a thermostat switch, and in this case it's right here. You can see it. This one actually has an adjustment there that I haven't had any need to adjust, and there are 3 posts on it. And I apologize, it's hard to see, but there's 1 at the bottom and 2 at the top. If you trace the wires, you'll find that one of those, in this case it's the one at the bottom, is coming from the power supply, essentially. So you plug it in, you're running power into the back of your machine. It's then going through a switch. That's the switch is right there in the middle, and then those power lines that are carrying 110, 120 volts are running to various things, but the main thing is this. So what this particular part does is it takes the voltage and it diverts it. based on the thermostat. So it's sensing the temperature of your heating element, and when it reaches a certain temperature, it shuts off power to the heating element and transfers power to, in this case, this circuit board. But it could also be just straight to the pump or through a switch. So the first thing you want to verify is that your heater is heating up. In this case, we were able to really quickly do that just by turning the machine on and seeing that it's spitting out frog from time to time, and you can feel heat coming off of it. So the heater's heating up, that's great. You press the button, what happens? In some cases you'll hear humming, but nothing really happens. In other cases, nothing at all will happen. The humming with nothing else indicates there's a problem with the pump or there's a clog somewhere along the line. So I would recommend removing the pump and giving it a thorough cleaning. I actually took this one apart yesterday. I found a great video online I'll link to in the description. Shows how to disassemble it. I cleaned it with acetone, a wire brush on a bench grinder, and a little ultrasonic jewelry cleaner. I added a little bit of lube from my paintball gun kit and put it back together, and it runs great. Although that wasn't the problem, so it didn't fix my particular problem. If you're not getting power to your heating element, the heating element's not heating up, the first place to start is with this thermostat switch. So verify that you're getting the full voltage, 120 volts, to one of the plugs. If you're not, that would indicate a wiring issue getting to this switch. If you are, check the voltage coming off the post and make sure that at least one of them is 120 when the unit is turned on. You can also try to check the leads on the heater itself. If it's getting voltage but it's not heating up, it sounds like there's a crack or there's something wrong with the heating element itself, and you're probably going to have to take it apart and then more than likely replace it. So as you're kind of troubleshooting and following the voltage, you need to just find where it ends. So if it's making it through your heating element, take a look and see if you have one of these. And from my understanding, this is kind of like a fusible link or like a thermofuse. So it's there to detect extreme temperatures, and if it does, it blows and it cuts the voltage to the heater. It's kind of like a backup mechanism. But my understanding is that these are not resettable. So if for some reason your machine does overheat to an extreme state and that blows, the heater will not work anymore until that's replaced. Although I would say if that's happened, there's probably another issue going on, because I've never had any of my fog machines blow that. But it's also possible that part may just fail over time. And you can very easily test it and get to the bottom of it using a voltmeter and just testing on one side and see if you have 110 volts, and then test on the other side. And if you don't on the other side, that means somewhere within that little mechanism there's a break. If your pump is not the issue and you're just nothing's happening when you're pressing the button, it's probably an issue. It's probably not a pump issue. So what I ended up doing was I actually cut the leads going to the pump, and I hooked up my multimeter and I pressed the button, and what I found was that I was getting 35 volts to my pump, but the pump says 110 volts. Yeah, 110 volts on it. So I knew there was an issue there, and I wasn't quite sure what it was. And with this particular machine, as I mentioned, it has a low fluid indicator, or low fluid sensor in this circuit board. And the circuit board really puzzled me. It runs on 12 volts. You can see a little 12-volt transformer there to the right. Because I traced all these wires around, and I could not see anywhere where the switch on the top of the machine had any kind of input on this board. Yet there's a relay here, this little relay right here, that is critical for getting power to the pump. So this white line coming here at the bottom of the circuit board is coming from that thermostat switch that I showed. So once the unit heats up, 110 volts comes to this wire onto this post. And this relay connects this post here on the right with the one on the left. This black wire coming off the one on the left runs to the pump. So that really had me, baffled, because I kept trying to figure out, well, how is that relay, being controlled? What's tripping the relay to send power to the pump? And after a while, I realized nothing is. So this board, the sole purpose of this board is to power the LED indicator lights on the front of the machine that flash when you have low fluid, and to cut power to the pump if the fluid level goes down. So really this board serves no purpose other than the safety backup to cut power to the pump. And that's why it took me so long to figure out what was going on, because this relay, anytime the machine is on and operating normally, is powered with 12 volts from the board and closed. So these posts are connected. And once I realized that, everything became a lot more clear. So I did a quick test. You can just unhook this black wire and essentially hook it in on this right post. So it's directly connected to the thermostat switch. You're taking the relay out of the equation. And at that point, the machine worked perfectly, right? It functioned normally. Although if the fluid level went down, it wouldn't have the emergency shutoff feature, which I actually kind of like. But once I was able to narrow down that it's an issue with the relay, I started testing the back of the board. I saw that it was getting 12 volts properly, but there were some continuity issues with it. And like I said, when it was running through the relay, I was only getting 35 volts. So there was an issue there. I went online, I found that exact relay, and actually, so that's not, this is the original relay. It says Xanti on it. There you go. It says Xanti on it. I looked it up online, I found the data sheet. I found a place in Shanghai, China that had them, but obviously I'm not going to wait that long. So I went to Radio Shack, and believe it or not, my neighborhood Radio Shack had a relay that matched it almost exactly. The dimensions were exactly the same. The only difference was that it can handle a little bit more amperage, which in this case doesn't really matter. So I took the board off, I desoldered the old relay, which is right here, and I soldered the new one onto the board, reinstalled it, and it works perfectly. So in this case with this Chauvet, and I believe a few of the other Hurricane models have an identical board, the issue was the relay on the board. It wasn't delivering full voltage to the motor, and the motor wasn't starting properly, it was running intermittently. I believe, even though it's a sealed, it appears to be a sealed relay, somehow it got corroded inside, just stopped working properly, and it needed to be replaced. It was a $5 part from Radio Shack. The part number was 2750031, and it took about an hour to desolder it and put the new one in. But for me, it's worth it because I really like this machine, and I didn't want to have to order a new one at the last minute for Halloween. So I hope this video helped out some of you. If you have any questions, like I said, feel free to post them in the comments. I'd appreciate the subscribe as well, and happy Halloween.